Fat Tuesday. It is the second birthday for someone that we want you to meet, an extraordinary woman with an incredible story. 13 years ago today, Gary was a mom, a former model, was driving along in a snowstorm in Virginia, and pow, a death-defying car accident destroyed her face, broke almost all of her limbs. Limbs that they found later were broken. They didn't even know. There was so much excruciating pain. Her face was actually removed by her steering wheel. She underwent 10 years of phenomenal surgery to reconstruct her body, and then did something else to reconstruct her soul. And she's here to tell the story and tell about one of the things that helped her do all this, an audio tape. Please welcome Gari Carter with her extraordinary story, Healing Myself. Hi, you.
Robin mentioned, Gary, that this is your birthday. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah,
your second birthday?
It's my birthday of my second life. Today, 13 years ago, the accident happened and started my second life as a bionic woman.
Yes.
So I always celebrate it to myself. It's an exciting day.
Now, could you even just tick off some of the surgeries? I mean, they had to re-break your, they had to put on a new nose, break your bones. Some of the things that were
My
repaired.
face essentially was a hole from the eyes down, so they had to reconstruct everything. My nose is made out of one of my ribs. My cheeks and jaws are all grafted together. And they pulled the skin from my ears over to the front of my face to cover the front of it. And they laughingly said afterwards, Gary, don't ever try to have a facelift, because we pulled you the wrong way. So,
one of the laughs that you had, that it was extraordinary to even find any in this book, but one of many. And we want to just talk briefly at first and then more later. You stumbled upon an audio tape service right out of Virginia.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
that was really neat. Before they made my nose, I was really scared because I was going to hurt in two places. They were going to take out a rib, and I'd hurt there, and I'd hurt where they put the nose in. And this really pushy friend called me up and said, I've heard about some pain control tapes that might help you. They're experimental. And if she hadn't been so pushy, I don't think I ever would have checked it out. But I did. And I called the Monroe Institute, which is just south of Charlottesville. And they said, yes, these tapes were experimental, but they thought they might help. And what they're based on is the hemisync system, which are tones. And the classic example is you have stereo earphones, and if you hear a tone of 100 hertz in one ear and 104 hertz in the other ear, the brain hears the difference between the two, which is 4 hertz. And by doing that, you're all balanced the way you are when you're painting or skiing or sailing or dancing or doing something you're all immersed in. And these tapes just made me breathe through the surgery.
You see you in surgery listening to the tapes.
While while the doctors were operating on you, reconstructing your nose from a part of your rib, you actually had the earphones on at that time.
Yes, I did.
And were you under anesthesia?
That time I did use anesthesia. After that, I asked if I could use them in the operating room instead of anesthesia. So I did it for 8 more surgeries after that with no anesthesia.
You also credit these tapes with your, what has been described by doctors as miraculous recovery.
Yes.
And that you didn't have to pre-op, or you didn't have to do 10, 20 months of sitting in some room. The swelling actually went down after a number of weeks.
The swelling would go down very, very quickly, and when you're relaxed, you heal faster. My surgeon at the University of Virginia, Dr. Milton Edgerton's schedule was set 5 years in advance. So I always had to wait for a cancellation to go in, and if I could heal faster to go in for the next session, then he could fit me in faster. So it worked a lot better. It did take 10 years to make the face.
You know, in fact, this is the face that you have now, and I think it's a beautiful face. I love the shock of gray hair that came as a result of the trauma, just suddenly a shock of gray hair.
Yes.
But we have the ability to see the face before in a funny way, because sitting in our audience is Gary's daughter, who literally, you say, was your face before. There
my
you
first
are.
face.
Hello. What do you think when you see your mom now? You were 13 years ago, a young child through all of this. I know you guys thought you were going to lose her.
In the beginning, it was very devastating, but really, after the initial shock of it all, I look at Mommy from the inside. I don't look at what's on the outside, and it really has only been in the last few years that I remember her, or remember or think of her with her new face. I still have a tendency to think of her old face.
I know we're sort of jumping around here, but because the story is so big, we're kind of taking it in chunks here. Go back 13 years. You had an after-life experience.
Yes.
And that you saw your father. And while your father was telling you, no, your time is not finished here on Earth, the same time your 7-year-old son,
11.
11-year-old son was performing CPR on you.
That's right. That's right. He was with me in the car, and this was my third near-death experience. So when I got in the tunnel, I thought, "Oh wow, I'm here again. This is wonderful." It was so exciting. Yes.
While you're in the snowstorm with a steering wheel
In my face, I had a near-death experience.
Oh, I know, but I mean, you're feeling that level of excitement?
Oh yes, it's fun to die. It's really fun.
Okay.
But I saw my father and I thought, "Oh wow, Daddy, I'm so glad to see you." He'd been dead about 10 years, and then he said, "No, you can't stay. You have a purpose. You have to go back." And I said, "What else could I possibly do?"
Right, what is that purpose? Have you figured it out now, 13
I didn't
years
know
later?
that for many years, and then I took this creative writing course when I lived in Denver, and for the first assignment we had to write about something in our lives and read it out loud. And I wrote the first chapter of my book, essentially what happened in the accident. When I finished, I looked up at the class to see what their reactions were. Everybody was sitting on the edges of their chairs, and somebody said, "What happens next?" And the teacher said, "Gary, you have a book here. This is a book that could really help other people." And that's what's happened. That's my purpose, to reach out that hand of hope to other people who need it.
It is a stunning story. I mean, John was, even just that event, the fact that your son, I mean, you described your face to us, and that your son would somehow find the strength to give you CPR and save your life. And it's gone on from there. I want to talk a little bit more about the tapes, because I know there's probably people in our audience who are living with this kind of pain, and it would help them. There was one point in the book where it's both sounds and the inventor's voice,
Yes.
A soothing voice, and also at one point the voice tells you to count, say the number 55515.
That's the secret magic code for getting rid of pain.
Why?
Well, it's almost like Pavlov's dogs, and it's just whatever you use that works. But the tones balance your brain so that you're quite relaxed. Then you hear the sounds of surf or music or other things. The tapes are used for a lot of other things in addition to pain control. They're used to help with education, with all different aspects of life, to help your golf game, your tennis game, help you sleep better.
Do you still use them?
Oh, yes, all the time. My children do as well. There's an 800 number you can call to find out about the tapes. It's 1-800-541-2488.
And in fact, we want to have people from the Monroe Institute on, because this is a well-respected what's the medical center called at University of Virginia?
That's separate. It's a craniofacial clinic which
But
reconstructs
But
your
they
face.
absolutely saw this work, and to the extent that they were assigning a nurse during surgery to change the batteries on your tapes so that the tapes would
Keep
run
going.
throughout the surgery.
Yes.
It's just an astonishing story.
Let me ask you something. Do people come up to you now? You've been through so much, and the face is such a thing that we put out there. It is our way of saying, here's who I am, and here's what I look like, and here then is behind me is all this stuff. I would find you to be an intimidating person to know, because you would put my life in such a perspective that if I was concerned about a pimple or my hair out of place or something like that, I'd always have you to remind me that life means so much more.
No. In my first life, I looked at the lampshades. Now I know to look at the light bulbs inside. When people see me now and they see I have a few scars left on my face, they think, well, that's somebody I can talk to about my problems, because that person would understand. And that's why I feel very lucky as a bionic woman. I can reach out to people, and it's there. We're all here to help each other. That's what life is.
Is the surgery over?
As far as I'm concerned, the surgeon is like an artist. He always says, there's something else I can do here or there, but I don't mind having the roadmap of where I've been on my face.
Well, Gary Carter, you've also put that in a book called Healing Myself. It's really, if you have anyone you know you love who is living with pain, it's a book you have to read. Thank you so much, Gary Carter.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.